So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening. This presentation is part of a larger presentation that Dr. Levison and I, and this is Behnam Dayanim, provided at the annual meeting a few weeks back. This type of material that we're going to present to you tonight is an important component of our commitment to accountability, which is a significant feature of our strategic plan. And an important part of accountability is transparency, and both Dr. Levison and I feel strongly that it is important to be as transparent as possible with our stakeholders. And so this presentation is given in that spirit. This is the kind of thing that we intend to do at annual meetings every year. And as I said, this is a piece of what we did at the annual meeting. This piece is focused on the financial aspects of the school and financial sustainability. At the annual meeting, Dr. Levison also spoke at some length about the academic aspects of the school and of our progress toward achieving those aspects of our strategic plan. And so I encourage all of you to come to the annual meetings, and I'm grateful that those of you who are unable but who are interested in this material have dialed in tonight. And as I said before we started the recording, if you have questions, you should feel free to raise your hand on the screen or text the question, and we will answer it. The presentation tonight has two components. The first component is an overview of our budget and some of the trends and drivers of the budget. And then the second portion of the presentation will focus on financial sustainability as laid out in our strategic plan, and talk about our progress toward achieving that objective. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Levison.
All right. Thank you very much, Behnam, and thank you also for the technical help in setting up this this webinar, and I hope it goes well so that we were able to use something like this in the future to communicate with our parents and with our community. It's certainly a lot easier on everyone not to have to travel out and be all in the same place. So really hoping that this goes well, and looking forward to hearing some of your comments before, during, and after. So maybe not so much before. This was, as Behnam mentioned, this is a budget presentation that we gave to the board and to people who came to the annual meeting. Ben, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
This is the MJBHA budget is approximately $11 million. What I'm going to be presenting to you tonight are some trends, some graphs, some idea of how we spend the money in the school. Also where some of the money comes from. The numbers behind the presentation are also available. We decided not to send them out in advance because it might have been distracting to try to follow it while I'm doing it, but we're happy to send it afterwards. Please email me if you would like a copy of that Excel spreadsheet, which shows you the projected numbers from 2011, 2012, and the budgeted numbers for 2012, 2013, and I'd be happy to send those to you. So the first thing that I want to call attention to is our income, and to pay attention or to notice that the vast majority of our income comes from our net tuition. This is something which may seem obvious to many of you. It's not obvious to everyone. But really, when we talk about where we get the funds to run the school, it is primarily from tuition. And this is a theme, actually, that we will be coming back to a couple of times throughout this presentation when we talk about the financial sustainability of the school and what really drives our budget on the income side. 14% comes from donation. This includes money that we collect privately. It includes money from the Federation, and it includes money from Jim Joseph. The Jim Joseph Foundation is a foundation in San Francisco that gave out money starting in 2008, 2009 to about 4 or 5 different communities to distribute to the different schools to make up for some additional scholarship that they were giving. Greater Washington was one of the communities that was fortunate enough to get money from Jim Joseph, and so that's also included in that 14%. That money is coming to an end. The distribution of that money is coming to an end next year, so that is something we can't rely on into the future. 5% of the income is from auxiliary services. Most of that is money that comes in and then goes out again on the expense line, but it is about 5% of the total budget, and 3% is the other. I want to point to a couple of items in the other. One is the endowment. We get about next year it'll be about $212,000 being distributed from our endowment. That is partly from the Helene Seidenfeld Visual Arts Center, and part of it is unrestricted. This is money that has been accumulated over time. The endowment has been accumulated over time. People who have bequeathed estates to us or part of an estate, people who have made direct donations to the endowment, and this amount, as you can see, $212,000 is quite a significant number to add to the budget, and allows us to do things we might not otherwise be able to do. That is a number that we hope will grow in the future. But at this point, it already is a number that is very helpful on a year-to-year basis. Sulam and rental, most of that is from Sulam. Sulam pays us on a per capita basis. That's their rental agreement with the school, so that the more kids that they have, the more that they pay us. It's a complicated arrangement, but it basically works for them when their population is lower. It obviously is more beneficial to us when the population is higher. Sulam right now has a near record enrollment or a record enrollment, so that number is higher than it's been in the past. Rental income is rental income from the building. That's a relatively small portion of that total. It's about $25,000 of that total. The last piece of other is release from reserves. We were fortunate enough to have some reserves from our previous years, and we are releasing $25,000 to this year's budget, this year's bottom line, and $75,000 is being released into next year's bottom line. So that helps to allow us to keep tuition down, but it is from reserves and obviously won't continue in perpetuity, but it is something that has helped us in the short term. On the expense side, the predominant expense for the school is teaching salaries and materials. This includes obviously the salaries that we pay teachers for direct instruction, and it also includes things like books. It includes student activities. It includes professional developments. It's everything that's directly connected to the teachers and to the teaching of the kids. G&A is pretty much everything that's on the non-educational side, with the exception of the auxiliary services, which I'll get back to in a moment. G&A is the building operation, so all the expenses of the building. That includes the various repairs and cleaning and maintenance and all that kind of thing. It also includes personnel involved in doing that. It includes security. It includes the business office. It includes IT. It includes development. It's really the non-educational side of what we do. So that's about 23%. 11.5% is educational administration. That includes the principals, the headmaster, the assistant principals or deans of student, the assistants to the principals, my assistant. Those are all on the educational administration side. And that combined is 11.5%. And 5.5% are the auxiliary services. Again, that's pretty much a wash with the amount of money that comes in on the income side. It's pretty close. So that's income that comes in. That's expenses that go out on transportation and in food services. I see that there are some questions here, so let me just pause a second.
Yes, the question was asking you to define the fiscal year.
The fiscal year for us is from July 1st to June 30th, so for the most part it correlates with the school year. Thank you for that question. And is the capital campaign included in donations? The capital campaign is not included in donations. That is it's a separate campaign. What we mean by donations are the annual fund, the annual campaign that brings in about $1 million a year, although this year we're going to struggle to reach that number. I remind everyone on the call that they should come to our fundraiser event in a week from now, and obviously that will help get us to that $1 million bottom line for donations.
Let me just interject to remind people that they should mute their lines so that the recording will be something that people can hear when they listen to it later. Thank you.
Okay, so for 2011-2012, we have a projected net surplus of $122,000. As I just mentioned, our fiscal year ends June 30th, so this is still a projection at this point. We're usually pretty close at this point, but it's still a number that has yet to be audited. It won't be audited until October, and there are still expenses coming in from a variety of different activities that go on in the building that have not been processed, maybe from mid to late May and throughout June. But we're that's a pretty good number right now. $122,000 sounds a lot. It certainly would be if it were my family's budget, and we ended the year with $122,000 in the positive. But as you look at the school's budget as a whole, it's about 1%. So it's a very, very small swing one way or the other. Obviously, we're very happy it's on the positive side, but it's not as big a number as it might look just looking at $122,000. Fortunately, though, for the last 8 years, we have operated without a year-end deficit, so we've been on the plus side of the ledger for the past 8 years, and that has allowed us, for instance, to pull from reserves to help us a little bit for this year and for next year. It's also allowed us to take certain small risks when we budget, knowing that we have done a good job at controlling expenses and bringing in income, so that is we are on quite stable footing since 2004. Again, in 2012, 2013, we passed a balanced budget in April or in March, whenever it was, through the board. This is based on a total enrollment of 700, the preschool through 12. The number that we usually think about more carefully in terms of long-term trends is the K through 12. The preschool goes up and down for reasons that may be completely separate and different from what might happen with the rest of the school. Not everyone who comes to the preschool goes to school in from K through 12, and vice versa. A lot of people who plan on coming in K or 1 don't necessarily come to our preschool. So the number 622 in K through 12 is an important number. The number 700 a little bit less important, but obviously the preschool is it's still an important part of our school, but in terms of long-term trends, just a little less relevant. We have the country and Greater Washington as well, obviously, has been through a rough last 4 or 5 years, and many day schools have been through a rough last 4 or 5 years as the expenses have been put under pressure, as families have struggled. Maybe some families have lost their jobs. So it's been a difficult last few years. We have been very fortunate to have better than expected enrollment for most of those years, and that's really been a savior for us as we have withstood this particularly rough period, and it allowed us to really look forward and not have to meet any crises along the last few years. But again, enrollment has really been the key. Again, this is going to be a theme that's going to come up over and over. But enrollment drives tuition. Tuition is 78% currently of our budget. That is absolutely crucial for the financial health of the school. You can see in the school in 2003, 2004, 2005 reached a peak. A lot of kids came when we moved into the new building, but a lot of kids also left in the subsequent 2 years. So there was a steep drop from about 2004 through 2006. But you can see that since then the trend has been much more positive. And look particularly at the K through 12, you will see that the trend is upward again. Right now, we are budgeted at a number that is 622 for next year, exactly the same as this year. we anticipate that we will have no fewer than 635. So we've also had some positive news there.